Hey everybody, welcome to 5 by 5 Live. I am Shannon Litton, President and CEO at 5 by 5. And today we're going to talk about one of my all-time favorite topics, StoryBrand. We at 5 by 5 are a certified StoryBrand agency, so we have seen it all when it comes to coaching clients and organizations through StoryBrand. We've actually worked with hundreds of individuals and organizations as they figure out how to StoryBrand their language. And so if you're not familiar with StoryBrand, it comes from Donald Miller's book, Building a StoryBrand. Highly recommend you pick it up and take a read. And then we often coach organizations through building a brand script. Now, today I want to talk about a couple of areas in all of this work that we've done over years of coaching clients through StoryBrand and helping clients figure out how to tell their story in a way that really gets their customers to act and to move. We found two areas that tend to be the areas not only that we make the most mistakes in, but I think have the greatest ROI. So it can be a little overwhelming to change all of your messaging. I love it when you get to work with an organization who says, let's just do it. Let's rip the Band-Aid off. Let's make the changes to the language and the website and all of the collateral. But let me tell you two areas in StoryBrand, if you're going to start turning the dial and tweaking things, I think you really ought to look at. The first is in StoryBrand, we talk about the main character of our story is not ourselves. It's not our brand. It's our customer. And once we make that shift in our mind, a lot changes. But after that, we talk about what's the problem that we're solving for that customer, for that main character. This is where I think we all need to take a little bit of look at the language that we're using. So with our problem, we talk about three different levels of problems. So the external problem, what are we actually solving? But more importantly, the next level, and this is where I think we really got to hone in, it's the internal problem. So if your customer has a problem that you're solving, how does that problem make them feel? And when we start to use those feeling language words, it really resonates in a different way. So, my problem may be that I need marketing help, but what really is happening is that I'm frustrated that I'm not getting any results, that my campaigns aren't working, or that I actually feel like I'm going to be blamed for some of the failure of the company. There's fear that's involved. Those are feeling words. That's that internal piece. When we start talking about that language, everything shifts. But let me give you one other little side note here. I think what we tend to do is we tend to over copyright in this area. So if I say, what's your customer feeling? You probably give me a few words that are right on the money. It's probably exactly the language that you need to be using. But then we do what we do as marketers and business leaders, and we step back, or we send it through copywriting and copy editing. I love copywriters, we have them here, but we tend to over copyright. So we take those words like, I'm scared I'm going to lose my job, or I'm scared I'm going to be blamed for the failure of the company, or I'm frustrated that I'm being held to these standards that aren't right. And we start creating all of this language, and we take out those words that really have emotion connected to them. And the minute that we start over copywriting, we lose the power of connecting to the way our audience feels. So don't over copyright. That's the first thing. Whatever you do, go with that gut language. I think it's so much better to be clear than to be clever. And that's what we need to do. The second thing is when we get over here to giving our audience a plan. And let me tell you this, the more expensive the product or service that you're selling is, the more complicated it is. Anytime generally you're in the B2B space and you're trying to sell something, a business service, you've got to be very careful here, because if I don't have an on-ramp, if you don't give me a plan of how to engage with your product or services, it's so likely that you're going to lose me. So if we think about it, if I asked you to cross a big river and the river's flowing really fast, and I just said, get on over to the other side, you'd probably look at me like I'm crazy. But if I tell you I've done it a lot, I've actually crossed that river so many times. I've crossed it when it's flowing faster than this. And let me tell you how to do it. First of all, you step out to that big rock right there. See that rock? Yeah, it's real sturdy. Just crawl out there. Just jump out there. And then see that log? That log's lodged in too. And it's high enough it never gets wet. So then just step over to that log. And from there, one step into the other side of the river. So step 1, rock, 2, log, 3, you're there. When I do that, it takes that really daunting job of crossing a river and it breaks it down into a way that you can understand. I'll tell you personally, I, like many people in America, have been in the process of refinancing my home in the last year. And you know, an industry that really could use a 1, 2, 3 step and break things down is the mortgage industry. It's complex. I've owned businesses for 20 years and it's still confusing to me. And it's not always clear what step we're on and what step is next. And so, in situations like that, the best thing we can do is to help the main character of our story, which is our customer, and take any of that confusion out by telling them, if you want to get started, here's what you do. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Or if we have a really confusing product, we can move that till we buy it. So now that you've bought it, here's the 3 steps to really get started and get value out of what you're doing. It can seem so clear to us behind the scenes what those 3 steps are, but it can make such a difference when we figure out how to say those in a really clear way and we give people what they need to decide to do business with us. So if you're getting started with StoryBrand, or even if you've been doing it a while, we got to go back every once in a while. We got to recalibrate. It's amazing how we tend to just over copyright as time goes on and make things sound more polished and less effective. So go back and do that work. Look at your StoryBrand script again. Make sure you think about that internal problem and how we say that in a clear way. And whatever you're selling, have a really clear plan that helps our audience onboard and also engage with us for now and for a long time to come.